I'm sorry, guys. I'm just listening to the game drive comms with half an ear. It's James out on tracking team now to help us follow up on the mating leopards. We've seen Thandi mating with Tingana 3 times in the last few weeks. 3 different sessions. This is the 3rd now. And it's obviously she hasn't fallen pregnant the first 2 times. But if this particular time is successful, Teresa, you were wondering about how long the gestation period is for a leopard. Oh, somebody's looking very sleepy. Good morning. Sorry, Teresa, I'll be with you in 1 second. Oh, so deeply asleep he hasn't even lifted his head. Oh, there we go. Morning, sorry. It's okay. You carry on your nap. Don't mind us. Fair enough. Give him whites of my eye, whites of his eye.
Morning.
Yeah, this is quite a common approach of the animals in the early morning when it's a cool, cloudy morning like this. They tend to stay sleeping for a little bit longer. He looks terribly comfortable lying where he is, not even ruminating. And just have a quick look at that oxpecker that's sitting on him. That is a red-billed oxpecker minus the red bill. It's actually a juvenile, it's still a youngster. So that bill in the process of changing from black to red. You can really see the way that this oxpecker is sitting. You can really see those, oh, yes, feed me. Never mind that I'm sitting on my own buffet. Please feed me. Isn't that interesting? That little interaction. Begging, constant begging. You would think that he would have plenty of access to food to get himself, and yet still reliant on mom and dad to feed him. Ah, look at that. The search for the leopards collides. Morning. I haven't seen any tracks coming. Haven't seen any tracks coming this way. Okay. Yeah, maybe I've missed something on an access road crossing. Okay. Brent casually and very gently blinding us with his lights still on to help him spot tracks. But yes, that little interaction was really interesting between juvenile and mom and dad. The whole life cycle played out on the backs of buffalo and giraffe and impala. He's up, sort of, having a good chew. Does his right eye look a little bit bulging? That's interesting. I wonder if it's just the angle that it's at, or if he's had some kind of injury to it. Fascinated by this oxpecker as well. I mean, it looks like it wants to feed itself. You would think it would be a very easy thing to do on the back of a buffalo. That serrated beak that oxpeckers have, obviously this juvenile hasn't fully learned to use it. And the way that oxpeckers pull ticks off buffalo, because it's actually quite difficult to dislodge a tick. It's not an easy thing. Their mandibles manage to dig into the skin of the animal and clasp tight. So it takes quite a fair amount of force to pluck them off. The oxpeckers comb their beaks through the fur of the animal to pull them off. We have a question from Rebecca about why oxpeckers' beaks turn red. And the answer is it's the species type. There's 2 different species of oxpecker. This is the most common of them, the red-billed oxpecker. There is also an oxpecker that has recently done an amazing recovery in terms of species number, which is the yellow-billed oxpecker, which has a half yellow, half red beak, and almost became extinct in this area until some seriously concerted efforts of various conservationists managed to pull it together and help to rehabilitate their numbers. But the red-billed oxpecker is the most common. I'm just listening to James's updates as well. But Rebecca, why does this animal have either a yellow or a red bill? What is it that confers that advantage? And the answer is I don't know. With color in birds, it's almost always a reproductive tactic. So birds take one of two approaches. One is the subtle coloring of the francolins, the more camouflage-oriented approach, and then you get the bright-colored lilac-breasted rollers, kingfishers, which go for the incredibly beautiful plumage. And there's no real complete explanation as to why it is that they do that color. Most theories seem to converge around the idea that it is a reproductive advantage and that the better, brighter colors communicate well to prospective mates. Buffalo looking intently at me, perhaps learning something about the colors of oxpeckers' bills. Probably not, though. I think he's just quite happily chewing on his cud. Okay, Buffalo, I'm sorry, we need to leave you. We need to go and find those leopards. Let's jump on the back with Brent and find out how his tracking is going.
So no tracks yet. It seems like they've done a disappearing maneuver. Don't worry, we're on it. And Commander Bond is out on the tracking team giving us a hand. So we're just trying to figure out where these leopards could have gone. And these tracks are now heading almost directly to final control. Stay on them for a while. I do apologize if my head's hanging off the side, but we are trying to find you a mating pair of leopards. So I've got both the male and female tracks going through here now. Now it looks like Karula's also trailing them, so there's 3 different leopards from the tracks that I can see. Have a look at the hair. I want to see if they've gone down the edge of the fence of the lodges or they've carried on up the access road.
Good thing we've checked everywhere. At least we know that we're double, triple checking each other, whether we want to or not. Paul, it takes quite a long time for those genetic testing results to come through, and you'll probably find that they're going to hold off on sharing that information with us until the study is complete, or at least until it is partially complete. But I promise you, as soon as we do know any results, we will let you know. Morning. I'm deliberately trying to check where you're not checking.
Apparently we've got a gremlin. We're still black screen.
Yes, I know. I hear so.
We're not sure why. The tech department is on it.
Okay.
But we might have to go visit them in a personal capacity shortly.
Aha. All right. Morning,
We're
Wium.
going to try find these leopards before we run back.
Disappear off. Isn't it?
Tracks going everywhere.
Wium's beard is terribly impressive.
It is. Oh, very nice.
All right. I'm going to keep trying to dodge you unsuccessfully.
So these tracks are going everywhere. I mean, there's tracks going east, west, north, south. James has been listening. He hasn't heard anything. I haven't heard anything.
Yeah. Tax is checked around Ballinitis Junction, so...
Yeah, there's no tracks going there. Last track zones are between FC and Reptile.
Okay. All right. Let's continue on. See if we can't figure out which way they've gone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Enjoy your sitting and listening. Cheers. All right, shall we try and pick a different route to the one Brent's going to take? I have a feeling I'm going to go around the corner and he's somehow going to be there in front of me.
Oh, I thought this cloud was going to break up, and it started to. And then it looks like this grey bank is rolling in from the west. Now, I don't think we're going to get any rain off that. It's sort of a very dry at the moment. There's no humidity in the air. Sorry, tax, go again. Copy, thanks. So we're having a look here. Sorry about that, I was just on the radio. There's a lot of birds in these little quarry bushes at the moment. They are fruiting. You can see the hornbills are having a feast over there. Look at them picking the berries. Ooh, look out. Wium, are you hungry?
I got fruits.
Wium's got fruits. I might wait for those hornbills to finish eating and go pick a guarri berry or two. They're very sweet and tasty. Oh, hornbills are gone. So let's go have a look. So one of the most amazing things about certain of the fruiting trees around here is that as we get closer to this bush, so we'll have a look here. So they will become ripe at different times to ensure that, so you can see there's lots of different colors and various stages of ripeness. So to ensure that they get spread, and not all the fruit is wasted, they will become ripe at different times. So there will be a constant feeding for a prolonged period on the bush. But guarri fruit is quite nice. There's another one here. Are you sure you don't want to try?
Give myself.
Ah, if the hornbills know what they're doing. There we go. There you go, Wium. I want to try. So it's really sweet. This is a slight tanninish taste, but really, really yummy. Oh, that one's got a worm. Wium, I think we should spend our drive here eating guarri seeds. What do you think?
We like breakfast.
It's breakfast. So, let me just... Now, there we go. So not only will birds, there we go, that's the seed. It looks like a big solid thing. All right, this one, there we go. That one I've taken the outer skin off. And you can see it's actually got a split down the middle. So it's actually two seeds inside a single fruit. And not only birds are not the only lovers of the guarri. People love the guarri. And also civet, genet, monkeys, baboons. Now, you don't find many of the antelope going for the fruit species. It seems to be far more the omnivores than the birds. And very few of the animals will actually even eat guarri leaves. So they're not really, really tasty in comparison to the seed, in my opinion. So if we try a leaf, very high in tannins. Like literally numbs and dries your whole mouth. Oh, I need fruit. to replace that terrible taste. So I'm just going to pick a few. We're going to move on shortly, but I'm going to take a few snacks for the road. So we'll see how many edible plant species we can find this morning. Let's do that while Jamie is in search of leopard. So, the magic guarri. Now, a lot of safari guides will happily tell you the toothbrush story. I refuse to do so. But it is actually more an interesting species. Now, it always grows where there's a high underground water content. So, very often on duplex soil, so you've got the sand and clay. And you can see the sand here, but there's clay just underneath. You can see there's a lot more grass in certain areas. The other nice thing about the guarri is, if you've been bewitched, it's a very important tree. If you have had the black magic put on you, and one of the ways witches are quite fond of killing you out here is via lightning. But if you carry a guarri branch with you, or you pop one in your home, it'll save you from the lightning. Now, the scientific name for the magic guarri is Euclea divinorum, sorry. Now, the reason it's called divinorum is it's used for water divining. So if you cut a nice forked branch and walk around, when you go over underground water, it'll pull you down. Now, I was a huge skeptic of water divining. Where are we looking?
Not dead. Pretty dead.
Oh, well spotted. There you go. I'm pretty sure those vervet monkeys are in this area specifically for these guarri bushes that are on fruit. There we go. That's actually quite a nice, interesting shot. You know, he's sitting in a dead knobthorn tree. And if we look behind over there, you can see the bush is moving. So I'm pretty sure there's more monkeys there. There we go. You can actually see one. There it is. Whoa! Jumping monkeys. So jumping straight into those guarris, and those guarris down there are also fruiting. And the one in the dead tree is probably keeping a lookout for any potential predators. Moved up to the left there. Yes. So having a look, making sure there's no... Oh, he's scratching himself. No, maybe... Oh, there we go. Yeah. So it's more than likely a male, and he's keeping a lookout in case of leopard, lion, and birds. Actually, he's looking for martial eagles and things that might feed off monkeys. So you quite often with monkeys will find a sentry whose job is to make sure that everyone else is safe while they're feeding. And the sentry position will swap. So there we go. Now, often with a lot of the edible plants out here, we never get a chance because the monkeys are too fast, and the birds, and the civets, and everything. But fortunately, with guarris, they occur in such wonderful thickets. You can actually see the coloration of the ones that have fruit compared to the ones that don't. You can see there's a slightly reddish tinge to them.
I had a mammal. The mammal is slowly disappearing. And we've got some kudu here. Now, while you were with Brent, I've been sitting, listening intently. I found their tracks moving off into this block, and I heard something somewhere go, which is my sort of half-hearted attempt at what mating leopards sound like. And the difficulty is with an earpiece in and with the wind blowing, I couldn't determine exactly where it came from, and I caught only the tail end of it. I was in the middle of talking on Game Drive Channel, calling in the tracks when I heard it. So, you know, with your mind split in different directions and with your hearing split in different directions, I can't quite tell exactly where the sound was coming from. So I've been sitting waiting for them to mate again. so that we can figure out exactly where they are. The difficulty is...
Guys, that one of them Sewers Road. One more father, she's on top of this last one.
Got her.
On the ground.
Got her. Copy that. Well done, Orbs. I'm going to make my way.
Yeah, awesome, met the bill not here.
Yay! Awesome. So they were just that little bit further from where we thought they were.
Sorry, what? I keep coming south. Okay, look at that. Passing this old PC truck. I'm also making my way out, but I'm still too far. I'm coming very slowly.
Yes, well done, Aubrey. Hey, Brian, some teamwork there. We got it. We got them. Told you we were going to get them. It was just a matter of time. Everybody watch your heads. Everybody duck. You okay there, Brian? Awesome. I'm so excited. I really, really enjoy seeing Thandi. Just that similarity, that genetic similarity between her and Shadow and Karula is fascinating to me. You can so clearly see that she's Shadow's twin sister. So I hope you're all as excited as I am. We nearly found them. Nearly. They were just that little bit further than I thought they were. It's amazing how the noise of mating leopards' sound travels. And no wonder those kudu were looking so relaxed. Yay! Oh, what a way to continue a morning.
Yeah, also good job.
Right, let's keep our eyes peeled, see if we can't spot Aubrey and Taxon. They're somewhere along this road. Wow, they're a lot further than I realized.
Aubrey.
That's incredible.
So I can't bypass you on days. I'm just going to shoot past, or is it on the Tingana?
Liz in Wisconsin, you are very, very excited. It's the first time you've ever seen Thandi.
Copy that.
It's only my third time, I think, seeing her, so I'm also incredibly excited. It's wonderful building up a collection of different characters. Wow, they're a lot further south than I realized. Goodness gracious. Well, at least we heard that. Brian?
Yeah.
We did well, sort of. Aubrey, can I make my way in?
Welcome.
Copy that, thank you. Oh, so exciting. Now, where? Everybody seems to be looking in different directions. Oh, duh. Just gonna walk straight across in front of us here. Hello, Thandi. How wonderful to see you. She's gonna go mate with him. Oh. They're both moving off. This is a very, very thick block. Thank goodness we've managed to see them now.
Sorry, can you just confirm that block?
Look at that size difference between a male and a female.
Yeah, so short.
Sure. Okay. This is where things are going to get a little bit tricky, everyone. I'm going to try stay with them. Let's see if we can't find a path in. I'm going to try and move behind Taxon there. Hopefully they're not going to go too far. Just let Aubrey go ahead. Don't disappear into a thick block, not now that we've just seen you. Oh, at least we got to see them slightly. It's so dense in here. We all have to follow a very similar route to get in. Okay, this is going to be very, very tricky. It's an incredibly dense block, and there's 3 different vehicles moving about. So I'm just going to send you back across to Brent just while we make our way in here, and I'll catch up with you shortly with those leopards again.
So exciting! Amazing leopard, Wium, sorry, but there we go. Our antenna had fallen down, unfortunately. We did such a good job at beating gremlins that even with the antenna down, it was working. So, exciting stuff. I know the male's Tingana. I'm not sure who the female is yet, but I'm sure Jamie will let you know as soon as she is able to. Oh, it is Thandi. Thandi, the loved one. There we go. Isn't that exciting? So, while they follow up on that, I just chatted to Jams, and we're going to go see if we can find Karula. If no luck with Karula, I've had a report of the Nkuhumas, unfortunately quite far to the north of our traverse area, but that doesn't mean they couldn't come back. And they were hunting buffalo last night in Buffalo's Hook. They were hunting buffalo in Buffalo Corner. So we're going to check around towards the Mawati River and then head east and north, see if there's any tracks of any lions around. But the wonderful thing about being in the African bushes, even if there aren't any lions around, there's lots of other wonderful things. I think we're going to continue on our mission to find as many edible plant species as possible today. Wium and I are quite peckish, so we're going to keep snacking on the fruits of the bush as we move through. If I can ever get to it, because quite often I'm beaten to it by the other primates and birds. Coming up to it shortly, and this is one of the more difficult ones. Let's go see if it's got any fruit on it. Here it is coming up here. It is the tree the Nkuhumas pride are named after. It's the brown ivory tree. Now this is literally like a sweet in your mouth. Now let's see. Have we got any fruits? But as you can see, they're generally quite big trees, so it requires quite a bit of effort to get, but they haven't fruited this year, and it doesn't look like this one's going to. I can't see any fruits on that, which is quite disappointing, I won't lie. Oh dear, no fruits on my favorite fruiting tree in the area, so we shall continue on. Wherever you look, there's always something. So on these disturbed patches next to the edge of the roads, there's quite often some little perennial herbs that grow. And here we have one. Now, just because I said I was going to eat everything, I'm going to have to, and I don't really like it. There we go, this is for you, yeah? So I'm not a big fan of licorice, but this is wild aniseed. Wow. I don't really like licorice. And it's a really strong licorice flavour. Really, really strong. Here we go. What I do for you guys. So there we go. That's the little plant. And when I say strong licorice, I mean, you can smell it even when you drive over it. Sorry, am I moving too much, Wium? Mm-hmm. Okay, let me put it on the dashboard then. And even when you drive over it, the smell of licorice permeates through the air. So, there you go. That's the second edible plant. Now, you can use it for cooking. And if you like licorice, then I'm sure it's wonderful. And I know a chef I used to work with often used to go out into the field and collect a lot of this, and he used to do sort of aniseed encrusted pork chops. Apparently licorice and pork go well together. In my mind, licorice goes well with nothing. But there we go. Oopsie, there it goes. So that's the second edible plant. 1 second, guys. Mike, as far as I know, there are 3 stations there, or 2 standing by. Just letting the other vehicles know while Jamie is trying to follow those leopards through the bush. And I'm not going to go try and take a piece of tartar out of him. I think he'll be just fine now. Got some oxpeckers on his back. We've actually seen this bull a few times before. There's that a wound on his right shoulder. And if he turns again, hopefully we'll be able to see it. Now, those oxpeckers provide a valuable service to a lot of animals, but they also quite often can cause some damage. So if we have a look at that wound, those oxpeckers have kept it open and made it bigger. So they feed off the congealed blood, so they keep picking at the wounds. There's red-billed oxpeckers with a juvenile. Now, this poor chap has definitely seen better days. He even has a large scar on his scrotum. That must have been quite painful. But he's definitely towards the end of his years. Even though there is quite a bit of grass, he's showing a bit of lack of condition. You can see how his hips are sticking out compared to the one behind him. So, and then you can see the large scar on his scrotum there. You can see he's broken his tail. His hips are sticking out, so he's definitely towards the end of his years. And you can see he's got quite a stiff walk, maybe a bit arthritic as well. So Steph says, loves to see these old buffalo bulls trucking along. And that's literally what they're doing. They're just biding the time before the lions catch up with them. And one of the reasons they're often together and not by themselves is just that a little group of them, they've got that little more chance of seeing off a lion attack. So, good old boys. American pie and the good old boys drinking whiskey and rye, except in this case, drinking pan water and feeding on panicum is what they do. So they're very much concentrated around areas that are easy to feed in and have lots of water. But these guys are just getting moving now, so as it gets darker, especially as we go towards the winter months, the areas they like to feed in that have high numbers of decent grasses and easy access to water are generally quite low lying, so they get quite cold at night. And so you find them up, especially in the early morning and in the evening as it gets dark, you'll find them higher up on the crests of the hills. What they're doing there is that the warm air rises, so it is a couple of degrees warmer generally on top of the hill than it will be at the bottom. So they will now be moving down. I think those guys in particular are going to head towards the treehouse waterhole, where they will spend their day wallowing and feeding and doing pretty much as little as possible. So very interesting that. Now we haven't seen a big herd for a while, and that's probably because of the green flush that's around us, so they're quite well spread at the moment.
There you go. That, for those of you who for whom this is a first-time experience, is what leopard mating sounds like. You can see why this block has been so difficult for us. It is almost impossible for us to get you a good view at the moment, unfortunately. But it was worth it just for the sound effects. And at some point, we will be able to reposition and get you a slightly better view, and they might move more out into the open. Oh, there was a sneeze there. So not the world's best view between the leaves, but at least you heard it. I'll try going forward a little bit, but I don't think that's going to help us very much. No. Okay, well, we're going to settle here for the moment and just wait and see. Hopefully the two of them decide to get up and move more into the open. If not, we'll just wait for our turn to have a chance to have a look at them. This, judging by the amount of noise coming from these two, these guys have just started their mating. And in fact, I believe that yesterday was the first day that they were seen mating together. I'm going to have to, there's a good chance I'm going to have to reposition so that Aubrey can get out of here. It is an impossible block. You get the rough idea and see how dense this vegetation is. Believe it or not, there's 2 leopards hiding there. And if they didn't make such a noise, we may never have found them. Okay, should we do this? Should we try? Let's see if we can get a view. Oh. Gonna squeeze in here. Have you got a view of Thandi there? Should I go back a little bit to you? There we go. At least we've got a view of Thandi, the beautiful Thandi, who looks so like her mother and her sister. At this point, I'm not even entirely sure where Tingana is. I mean, I know he's there, somewhere next to her, but I cannot see him at all. It's incredible the way that leopard camouflage works. You don't think of the brown tan color as being hidden in green, but when she lies like that, she could be part of the scenery, apart from that twitching tail and slight signs of irritation. Now, leopard mating, and it applies to all big cats, leopard mating is a very angry affair. And the reason behind that is that the male's penis is barbed, which means it hurts the female, and they copulate sort of once every 5 to 10 minutes in the beginning of their mating sessions for about 4 to 5 days. And there's lots and lots of energy expended. But that type of mating and that technique, that the reason that the male's penis is barbed is because the female needs that stimulation in order to ovulate. It's called induced ovulation. And what it means is that when she comes into estrus and she starts to mate, fertilization only occurs towards the end. And that means that a bigger, stronger, better male might have a chance to come along and mate with her, although Thandi would be hard-pressed to find a more suitable mating candidate. Tingana is most definitely the largest leopard around Djuma. He is second only to the Anderson male, who's a little bit further to the west of us. And poor Tingana has definitely had a difficult few months. First approached by Shadow, Thandi's sister, then Karula, their mother, then Shadow again, then Karula again, then Kutile once, and then now Thandi. So he's definitely been working very hard at mating with the different females of the area. Isn't it amazing how a couple of weeks ago, a sighting like this, we would have been able to see her perfectly. There was hardly any grass in this area. If there was, it was basically ankle height. And now, we can barely see her behind the grass and the overgrowth. And Heidi, absolutely. Might not have been the clearest view that we got, but you are right. Just hearing the sounds that they make is incredible. It's such a strange sound. I mean, it's a combination of a growl and a roar and something else, a whine, I guess. Oh, exhausted now. It's clearly been a busy night for her. These two will continue this process for another few days before they go their separate ways. And chances are, unless the opportunity has really presented itself in a clear way, chances are they won't have eaten the entire time that they spend together. Which means that by the time they do go their separate ways, they're exhausted and absolutely starving. And as soon as she's finished with Tingana, she will go straight back south to her territory. She's right. She's sitting now. We are very close to our southwestern corner. She's actually sitting right in the overlap between her territory, her mother's territory, and her sister's territory. Which is fascinating. And she probably grew up in this area, or moving about this area. As far as I know, Thandi and Shadow are Karula's oldest cubs, or the oldest offspring. They're definitely no longer cubs. That puts them on about 9 years old. Is that correct? Yes, 9 years old, going on close to, yeah, about 9 years old, unless I'm very much mistaken. We now have one very sleepy cat. Since we're here, and at the moment we've got spots completely hidden in grass, we can have a look at the tree that is currently obscuring her on the right, or partially on the right. That is a round-leafed teak. It's one that's coppiced slightly, which is why it's growing in so many different directions. It's something that elephants love to feed on when it's young. They almost farm in this area. She thought about lifting her head there, and then went completely back to sleep. And obviously the reason that I'm... Oh, heads up. She could, because it's cool this morning, she could well mate with him on an even more regular basis. So I've seen her on cool and cloudy mornings. I've seen them mate once every 2-3 minutes. So there's a good chance that she's going to get up at some point and harass him again, wherever he may be. Not entirely sure where that is. Just getting more comfortable in her blanket of grass. Look at that. fascinating. It's like looking at shadow, but different. Same shape of the nose as well. It's incredible that a close to 100-kilogram leopard, I mean, I think Tingana must be about 90 odd kilograms, which is close to 200 pounds. It's amazing how a 200-pound leopard can quite literally vanish from view in this vegetation. I don't know where, I have no idea where he is. I think he's lying up behind her, but I really honestly couldn't tell you. He must be. There's no other place for him to hide. But I mean, Tingana is not a small male. He's not a small animal. And the disappearing skills of leopards. Now imagine you're tracking a leopard on foot, walking through this kind of vegetation, and it's the Sabi Sands leopards, so most of them are exceptionally comfortable with people walking about them, obviously within reason. You keep your distance, they're still wild animals. But most of them, Karula for example, will be comfortable and stay lying down with a person up to 20 meters, or as close to as 20 meters. How close were you, Bryan, that one day? Probably about 30 meters.
From Karula?
From Karula.
When we first saw maybe 5.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, Brent's got a snake.
Look at this. The apex predator of the reptiles. It's a big black mamba, probably about 2 meters. Oh, look at it go. Definitely not the biggest we've seen, but spotted by Wium. See where it went, Wium?
Going into that bush there.
Into that bush. Well, we're going to take a slightly wild berth to get closer. It's amazing how a snake that size can disappear.
His tail there.
Wium can see its tail. Here we go. Incredible. So it's got nowhere else to hide apart from that little bush. I'm just going to go around a bit more so you can see its head. Now, as you can see, a black mamba is not black at all, but rather sort of a gunmetal grey. They get their name from the inside of their mouth being pitch black. Yeah, I think I see its body. There's some more of its body. Look at those scales. So it is hiding in one of the edible plants. I'm not going to go eat that plant though. I think it might be detrimental to my long-term plans. I wonder where the head is. Now, these are incredible predators. They hunt birds, lizards, chameleons, small mammals. Highly, highly neurotoxic venom. One of the most venomous snakes in the world. Yes, we did an interesting thing yesterday. We did a first aid training drill where I was bitten by, fortunately not a mamba, but a fictitious spitting cobra. And unfortunately, I did not survive the training exercise. Which obviously, you can see a bit of its body. You got it there, Wium?
Negative.
There we go, a little bit to the right. You can just see that there in the darkness. There we go. try a slightly different spot. Now, one of the strangest things. Now, of course, we're not going to irate this large mamba too much. That's why we're keeping our distance. And I think it's going for the invisible vibes. And there we go. Matt in Nashville says he's been waiting to see a snake for weeks. There we go, Matt. That was a nice view of a black mamba. So obviously it's feeling slightly uncomfortable. That's why it's gone into that and it's hiding in that little thicket. But it's not really giving us another view. I'll try once more. I'm probably going to move away. Now I think there's also a hole there. There seems to be a slight termite mound next to it. So maybe that snake has disappeared underground. No, I can still see the body there. So this is what often happens with snakes. There we go. You can just see the piece of the body there. So they are far more scared of us than we are of them. So instead of attacking us, the snake is trying to avoid us and hide from us. So we're going to let it do that. But wasn't that amazing? That lovely sight of the apex reptilian predator. So we're going to go in search of more apex predators. And I think we'll add it along with our edible plant search. We'll search for apex predators of all kinds. So one of those, of course, is the lion. And we're going to go check if we can find any tracks of the Nkuhumas. And maybe we might be lucky enough to see a martial eagle, which is the apex predator of the air. Let's continue on. We're going to head east. Oh, we're on the eastern boundary, sorry, heading north, trying to see what else we can find. So Veer is wondering, is it more toxic? Sorry, Veer, I'm looking at tracks. Is it more toxic than the Australian common brown snake? I'm not sure, but I do know Australia has the most venomous snakes in the world, and I don't know if the common brown snake is the most venomous, but if it is, I do know Australia has, I think, 2 or 3 species that are more venomous than a mamba. Oh, hello, kudus. Lovely little group of kudu. Those wonderful big ears. Oh, baby's off. Now, this little group of kudu had a couple of babies not too long ago, but unfortunately for them, they lost one of those babies to Gijima. Sorry, I think I've just move forward slightly. We've got leopard tracks here on the road. We also have honey badger tracks. We've got multiple sets of tracks here. It's going to be quite confusing to work out what's what. Now, we want the leopard tracks on top of the honey badger tracks, not the other way around. Unfortunately, it looks like the honey badger tracks are on top and the leopard tracks are heading into Torchwood. It seems like it was a very busy road last night. It's honey badger marching backwards and forwards. Just stopping and listening. Can you hear a cape turtle up? I think I heard some elephants screaming just down the road. I'm going to go see if they're there. I'm going to keep my eye on the tracks. See if I've made a mistake. There's definitely female leopard tracks here as well. So I'm going to try to sort out what's going on with these footprints. While we do that, let's head back to Jamie with Tingana and Thandi.
Oh, wonderful news. We have the sighting all to ourselves for the moment, and therefore I don't have to whisper quite into the tucked up part of my shirt, because there's... Oh, no, somebody else is on their way. Here we go. Somebody's just joined us. So, we've got the best visual that we can get at the moment. Believe it or not, I finally found Tingana. He is next to impossible to spot. Let me just see who's here. Isn't that incredible? There's a leopard there. And that's what I was talking about before Brent found that black mamba. We were discussing Bryan's sighting with James on foot, and the fact that when they first saw Karula, she was 5 meters away, which is 15 feet, incredibly close, and she was perfectly comfortable with them. No, she just happened to stick her head up over the termite mound. Now, of course, immediately they moved away and to a slightly safer distance, or slightly nicer distance, more comfortable for both them and for her. But it does happen that occasionally you stumble upon a leopard. But just imagine trying to track an animal through this area. And this is where the true master trackers are so phenomenally skilled at what they do. Because they can track birds through the sky almost. Oh, the tail twitched there. Is she thinking about getting up? I love how he's managed to tuck himself right underneath the log where it's going to be really difficult for her to get to him and harass him. And almost all of the initial mating is initiated by the female. And hopefully now with this view we can get to see the dance that she will do for him. But I mean, tracking through here, I could walk through this block within 20 meters, although I must say I'd be walking very, very slowly, given how thick it is. But I could be walking within 20 meters of them. And there's 2 of them. I would have absolutely no idea they were here, unless I heard them. This is where I think this is one of the attractions of leopards for people, is their sheer, what did I call it? Their subtlety, and it's a true subtlety that is so attractive to us as humans. Their mysteriousness. We just got very lucky that we managed to find them on the road, or that Aubrey managed to find them on the road before they decided to disappear in here. We spoke about how Thandi is currently sort of in the corner of mainly Karula's territory, but with the overlap with Shadow and herself, in fact. And Shannon was wondering where exactly Thandi's territory falls. And although it's not an area that I'm familiar with, it seems as though it's to the south of us. So around Chitwa and Little Gowrie, and possibly even slightly into Hoffman's, although that's mainly Shadow's area, but maybe the sort of the northwestern corner of Hoffman's. And Shannon, I'm really sorry because I haven't managed to get the maps on my phone yet. The map, I think, would help us tremendously, although I'm sure if we ask nicely, Brent might be able to demonstrate. Oh no, he can't actually. He can't either because he doesn't have the maps with him. But I will, if we do have to leave the sighting, if other people do want to come and join us, then I will draw you a more complete picture. But suffice to say, it is in the southern, sort of the southern part, or just on the southern side of her mother's territory and to the east of her sister. Across Gowrie, Main. Any moment now, she should be getting up. I just want to see if this other vehicle might want to come and join us here, or if he's managed to get a good view from where he is. It's always a bit of a gamble with mating leopards because they could get up and move slightly into a completely different position before they mate. Can you hear the bleating warbler? Oh, head up. Oh, and 2 heads up. Now we must hope, keep our fingers crossed and all of those things, that these two do not decide to go any further to the west. Oh, Tingana's back down again. So is Thandi. But when they do go through here, the chances of us being able to follow them, even in our little vehicle, Taxon took one look at it and he said, if these leopards go any further west, we're going to lose them. Even Jamie won't be able to follow them. And that's just because it is monkey orange thicket that is so dense, I don't think we would manage it. We've got to just enjoy as much time as possible with these leopards. Well, the two of them, as subtle and mysterious as leopards are, you heard the noises that they were making, and that can and will alert almost everything in the area to their presence. And for the most part, that's absolutely fine. They're quick enough and agile enough to escape any unwanted attention. But Teresa was wondering, do leopards have any natural predators? Apart, of course, from... Oh, here she... Or not. Oh, even flatter. Completely stretched out and comfortable. And Teresa, yes, apart from man, of course, being the dominant apex predator in this area, although fortunately that man is not something that these leopards will ever have to worry about. Within the Sabi Sands, they are completely protected. Their biggest threat out here would be the lions. And I have seen lions chase leopards before. They have been recorded to kill leopards as well, although that very seldom happens just because the leopards are so much more agile than the lions. But leopards, another threat in terms of predators would be potentially wild dogs. There are occasional cases of them being recorded to harass leopards that they've managed to trap on the ground. Although the leopard's agility and tree climbing ability usually puts them far out of reach. And then occasionally hyenas, although most of the time hyenas and leopards have a relatively stable interaction. So a leopard will be chased off a kill by hyenas, but they won't go far. They'll sit and growl. For example, Thandi's sister Shadow and that sighting with Peter Pretorius where she killed an impala and was promptly chased off by two hyenas, and she sat probably about 20 meters away, 60 feet away, just growling. Their biggest threat is during their first year of life. The cubs are the ones that face the highest mortality, and that's because they're not as alert, they're not nearly as agile as other animals or as the adults are. Their biggest threat, 50% of cub mortality, is accounted for by interactions with other males. So unknown males coming in and killing the cubs in order to bring the female back into estrus and to pass on their own genetics. The rest of the other 50% is made up of a combination of hyenas, lions. Very seldom will there be cases of leopard cubs being killed. For example, it'll be a very small percentage of leopard cubs being killed by eagles or snakes. And that's only when they've strayed from the den site or being located in the den site. It's a very unusual situation. Yesterday afternoon, when we were alerted to the presence, just chatting a bit about Thandi's territory and the movements of them, when we were told about this sighting, James gave you that update that there were 3 leopards there and that we suspected that the third was Karula. James, you are absolutely right. There was a third leopard, and it did turn out to be Karula. She did exactly what she did the last time this happened. The last time Thandi moved into her territory to mate with Tingana, Karula approached and sat a couple of meters away and growled and dribbled and was just very, very upset. And the same thing happened yesterday, and I think you can imagine how them being so close to her den site, even though they're not a threat, would definitely have put her nose out of joint. She cannot have been terribly impressed with them. So they moved away from her rather than her moving away from them. She's probably still with the cubs around Little Gowrie. That's where her den site is. It's to the south of our traverse area. So she probably just stayed while they moved out. But you never know. She may have heard them coming further south again, and she might just make another appearance. That would be very interesting if Karula decided to come and join us. She does tend to do that. There is another vehicle that is trying to make their way in, and I might have to, in order to give him a view, I might have to reposition slightly. We'll wait for now until he gets in here, and we'll just give the leopards a chance to decide if they're going to stay here or if they're going to move. Nemo is wondering about the pretty little blue flower in front of our very sleepy leopards. And Nemo, from here it looks like it is a commelina. A commelina flower named after the Commelina brothers, who were all botanists. And there were 3 of them, just like there are 3 petals of the commelina flower. That's what it looks like from where I am sitting. Quite difficult to judge, and as much as I appreciate the presence of Thandi, I don't think I'm going to be heading over there to pluck it anytime soon. But what I'll do for you is I will have a look out, and we'll ask Brent to have a look out for one of them as well, so that we can give you a slightly closer view. Isn't it incredible how the flowers have shot up recently? Just since the rain. I really thought it was too late, but the ground is covered on quarantine in strings of stars and devil thorn flowers. The change in the environment is phenomenal. Poor Mike. Poor Mike is trying to make his way into this sighting. It's not an easy thing to do, and it's made a lot more difficult when the vehicle is about twice the length of ours. Oh, hold on. Which way is he going? Oh, no, that's okay. Now, I've tracked a couple of leopards before that have been sleeping just like Thandi, and the 2 of us have surprised each other in the most interesting way. You can just imagine the reaction when you're walking along and all of a sudden there's a leopard exploding out of the ground in front of you, or off the ground in front of you, although it does feel as though they've popped up out of the ground and launching itself away from you. It doesn't often happen. I mean, we walk around with our senses very much on high alert. Oh, I think she's going to get up now. Sorry, I just need to give Mike some instructions here. Mike for Jamie. Mike, have you seen where these ingwe are?
Jamie, I haven't got visual yet, but I'm right at the scene.
Okay, copy. They're just about 10 meters away from you on my left in this thicket. I don't think you're going to get a visual going in the direction you're going in. I think come around the marula tree that's on your right. Come around and come behind me.
Okay, all right, copy. No problem.
Just making sure poor Mike doesn't make his life even more difficult in this thick block. Oh, so much for Thandi deciding to move. And speaking about how difficult it is for us to find leopards, it is much, much easier if you're a leopard yourself. And Charlotte, who's watching in Port Elizabeth, Charlotte would like to know, how do these leopards find each other when it comes time to mate? Does the female follow the scent marking of the male? Charlotte, there's a combination of different factors. A lot of the time, the female will find the male through scent marking. A lot of the time, the male will actually find the female through her scent marking as well. Obviously, it's up to her to let him know that she's in estrus, and that comes through very clearly in the urine spraying that they both do. So she will urine scent mark, he will be on his regular patrols. She will be a lot more active in terms of her scent marking when she is in estrus. So she'll move about her, sort of the fringes of her territory or her home range. And as soon as a male comes through that is possibly, or that will be interested, he'll have a good sniff and then start looking for her. The other way that they find each other is through calling. Now, I'm just going to have to reposition ever so slightly, see if I can't help Mike out here and make it a bit clearer. I'll move forward for you now. Can you see them there? Okay, we're just going to share this sighting with the rest of the guests. They haven't had a chance to see it. So I'm going to try and shuffle forward so that we will only have a view of Thandi for now. Sorry, Bryan, I'm going to put you at a bit of an angle. And let's let Mike move forward a bit behind us. Hopefully we'll be in a prime spot to see Tingana when he does get up to mate. I'm sure they're going to get up soon anyway to mate. Fingers crossed. Now that I've said that, they're going to spend the rest of the morning fast asleep. Oh, I think, unfortunately, where we are now, Bryan can't really see Tingana. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and shuffle about, see if I can't find us a better view. While I do that, let's find out what Brent is up to for the morning.
So Wium and I are checking at the northern perimeter, seeing if there's any tracks of the Nkuhumas possibly coming back. And I heard the pretty leopard were in front of a pretty flower. And I went and found said pretty flower so you guys could have a closer look. And it is a blue commelina. There we go, very pretty flower. Got two very big petals and one very small petal. I always think a lot of these flowers look like elephants. So if you put it there, you need to use your imagination slightly. You can see there's ears and the eyes. This one's got a third eye, but in the trunk and the two tusks. Oh, sorry, my cap's in the way. Here we go. Blue commelina, named after three botanists that were brothers. And two made major discoveries, and that's represented by the two big petals. And the third, he died before he could do anything of influence, and represented by the small one. So many flowers. Megan's wondering if there are any herbs or spices in the bush that can be used for cooking. Well, Megan, that licorice or aniseed that Wium and I were eating earlier can be used for cooking. Also, there's wild basil, onicum, that can also be used for cooking. But since we are going to do some flowers, let's This is a good spot. We have some multiple species. So there's species number 1. And species number 2. Number 3. I saw another one here somewhere. Oh, we'll just do 3 for now, and we'll keep going. Unfortunately, well, some of these are edible, but you need to cook them first. And look at me, I'm a decorator. And species number 4. So we got yellow, white, pinky, and blue. Let me just put my ears back in. So this, I think James showed you yesterday on the sunrise safari. It's called wing-seeded sesame. Now you can extract oil that can be used for cooking and whatnot from this one. Oh, very interesting, very interesting. Oh no, it's not. So I thought I saw a mite inside, but it wasn't. So wing-seeded sesame. And let's do that one last. And this is the one, we all know this one. We see it quite often. We've shown it to you many times. It is called a string of stars or a lamb's tail. Probably the most common of the wildflowers we see. And it is a heliotrope. So during the day when the sun is shining, the flowers will move ever so slowly, slower than the human eye can see, following the sun through the sky. Now, this one you should definitely not eat. This one doesn't even have an English common name. It's only got a scientific name, and it's called Waltharia indica. And this is the host plant species for my favorite type of butterfly, the acreas, and the larval stage sequest a poison from it, hydrogen cyanide. So when they become adults, they are very noxious, and that's why they are very beautifully colored, to warn all the birds not to eat them because they taste fuffy. Now, another, on to the last, but certainly not the least. It is definitely the least in what can be used and interesting things about it. Not much about it apart from it just grows on disturbed sandy soils. I just think it is one of the prettiest flowers we find. It is so delicate and so tiny. It's called a blue haze. I also just like the name, I think. Its scientific name is an evolvus. So it's evolving, I'm not sure how. But I just think it's incredibly beautiful and incredibly delicate, the blue haze. Okay, let's meander on. While we meander on, let's go back to Jemma and the leopards.
Okay, so there's another vehicle that would very much like to come and join this sighting. And since the other 2 vehicles haven't had a chance to see the mate, it's time for me to pull out and let them come in. Just thought we'd say a brief goodbye to them. And if we have a chance towards the end of the sunrise safari, we will come back to these leopards. I just wanted to let you know I do have to leave now, but that we will come back if we can. It's just fair to let the other vehicles have a chance. So while I make my way out of this block, why don't you head back onto the back of Brent's vehicle?
Alas, you had to leave those wonderful kitty cats, but hopefully we'll be able to catch up with them either later in the drive or on the sunset safari with James and myself. But for now, we are checking the northern perimeter, seeing if we can find any signs of the Nkuhumas pride. Oh, yellow, 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 bright and beautiful. There we go. Now this, oh, it's absolutely stunning. This is a senna, and the smell, I'm actually taking this home. I'm going to put it in my bedroom. Oh, it is gorgeous. Smell that, Wium. So, better than the best perfume. I'm trying to describe this. It does almost smell like roses, believe it or not. Wow, that is beautiful. So very pretty flowers. And one of the things I love about flowers, and I am a very, very big flower fan, it has got me mocked on many occasions, but how each different species of flower has got a different design, specially suited to different types of insects. Now, if we go back to my favorite little pretty blue one, now you can see the size difference between them. And the same insect that pollinates this is definitely not going to pollinate that. So the sort of different little segments of the flower they're all designed to suit a different species of insect. Now these guys, you can see they're big and open, quite often get fed on by quite a few different fruit chafer beetles. So the fruit chafer beetle, it's designed to be big enough that the beetle can crawl through there, get covered in pollen, fly off to the next one. Also, you find quite a lot of the big wasp species, and of course honeybees. Now, and then this little one, there's actually a couple of tiny species of wasp that feed off this, but mostly it's flies that pollinate the little blue evolvus. So I do love flowers. I think I'm actually going to pick another one to put in my room to get. There we go. Oh, almost want to tie it around the base of my neck so I can.
It looks nice.
So smart. VM says this looks nice. I don't know what you guys think, but yes. I want some tape. Okay. VM is now forcing me to do this now. Let me just strip the bottom leaves. It can be my corsage. And a very important thing, if you're on any form of film set, there are two of the most important things you need out here. VM is going to fetch the other one now. One of them is good tape, and VM will never be found anywhere in the world without a packet of these, of various different sizes, cable ties. So you can pretty much fix anything with some good old duct tape or gaffer tape and a cable tie. Okay, here we go. There we go. Pop that there. How's it look, VM?
Are you going to a wedding?
It looks like I'm going to a wedding. There's no weddings today, but it smells so nice. So, Nemo, on the subject of flowers, I was wondering, are there any edible wild flowers like buttercups? There are a few edible flower species, but quite often they need to be prepared, so you can't just eat them raw. Or you probably could. They wouldn't do anything bad to you, but they probably just wouldn't taste too pleasant until they've been prepared. So another one of the edible flower species that we saw a couple of days ago is the wild foxglove. Now, raw, it has the most disgusting smell. It smells very similar to cat urine. But once it's cooked, it becomes really, really sweet and tasty. So I'm trying to think of offhand any flowers that you can just eat. I'm afraid I might be incorrect. I'm sure there is one, but my brain is not functioning to find it. But I will keep thinking about that, Nemo. But you can eat a lot of the flowers, but generally they need to be prepared first. Oh dear. Can't have that now. Sorry. I didn't stick it properly. There we go. Now, a long time ago, when I used to work in a very busy, fancy safari lodge, I had a guest who would literally throw up at the smell of a carcass, which is quite difficult when you're trying to show people lions and leopards, because quite often they're around very smelly carcasses. And this exact species of plant, the senna, I literally broke off a branch for her, and we went into a very, very rotten hippo carcass that was being fed on by the coalition of male lions at the time, which was the Mapocho males. And she literally spent the next 45 minutes like this, while looking at the lions, breathing in the beautiful smell of the senna, rather than the rotting, maggoty corpse of the hippopotamus. So we are getting into the zone now where if the Nkuhumas have come back from the north, they're going to cross. It's going to be in the next sort of kilometre and a half. So we're going to slow down slightly and start staring at the ground again. But while I'm staring at the ground, don't worry. I still am looking forward to having your questions. And if there is anyone new there who's not sure how to get your question answered, pop us an email on questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter. So on the subject of lions and some colour variations, Emily is wondering, would like to know more about white lions, and are there any in the area? Unfortunately, there are not. There are some not too far away from us, though. Some to the east of us and some to the north of us, northwest. So, white lions it's a double recessive genetic that causes that. The correct terminology for them is leucism, leucistic lions. And that means they're not albinos. Albinos is a complete lack of pigment in the skin and the hair. Leucism is just a lack of pigment in the hair only. So it's generally more common in birds. You find a lot more leucistic birds than animals. So white lions are leucistic lions. And the area that white lions are most famous from is just to the northwest of us. It's called, oh dear, there might need more tape. It's called the Timbavati Private Game Reserve. And it is an area where the Birmingham boys come from. So it is possible that those Birmingham boys carry that white lion gene. But for a double recessive gene to come through, thank you, Vin, you actually need to have both male and female carrying that gene. So it's no point one or the other carrying. And so it has to be the male and the female both carry that gene, and that's when it comes through. Now, there have just been some new white lions that were born in the Kruger National Park to the east of us. There's 3 of them there at the moment. I think there's another 3 or 4 in the Timbavati. So, unfortunately, with the captive lion industry and breeding industry and cub petting and all those horrible things, white lions are quite a sought-after creature. So a lot of people have put a lot of white lions or done genetic tests, and any lion that carries that recessive gene, they'll try and mate with another lion that has that recessive gene. So a lot of the white lions you see in zoos and places around the world are very, very inbred. So it is a bit of a problem. Everyone seems to like an anomaly. So it has caused excessive breeding, so you find there's very little genetic variation in a lot of wild lions in captivity. Fortunately, the ones in the wild, in the Timbavati, they're very healthy genetically. But who knows? Maybe one of the Nkuhuma ladies is carrying the recessive gene, and the Birmingham boys as well. Now, don't get too excited. I'm playing speculation here. It's highly unlikely that the Nkuhumas or the sticks are carrying that recessive gene. Not impossible. Probably a chance of about 1 in a million. So there's always the possibility we could have a white lion born in the Sabi Sands. However, in the last 30 or 40 years, there hasn't been one. So that probably means that the females in this area are not carrying that gene. But you never know. One of my favorite topics during the summer months, and Megan would like to know, is there a national or official flower of South Africa? There is. It's a very beautiful flower as well, and it is called the protea. Now, unfortunately, I do not have it in a book with me, so I suggest you go online and search protea. There are quite a few different species in South Africa, but the national flower of South Africa is the king protea. Very, very beautiful, very big flower. And king proteas are endemic to Fynbos, if I remember correctly. Fynbos is a very specific biome that occurs around the Western Cape. Now, we do have other proteas that occur outside of the fynbos, but they are a mountainous species, so they're high up on the mountains. So have a look online, Google protea, P-R-O-T-E-A, or more specific, king protea. That is the national flower of South Africa. Speaking of national things, of course, the national animal of South Africa is the springbok. That is also the name of our rugby team. The national bird of South Africa. Wium, do you know what the national bird of South Africa is?
Crane?
Yes, well done, Wium. It is the blue crane. Do we have a national tree? I'm not sure. I don't think we do. Maybe if you guys check, I think we do. I'm not sure what it is. So do me a favor, jump on that Google search engine or whatever you prefer and type in National Tree of South Africa and let me know. You guys can teach me something today. What is the National Tree of South Africa? So if you find out that information, pop me an email, questions@wildearth.tv, or use the hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter. So those lions were chasing buffalo probably about 2-3 kilometers from this very point. So we're going to start checking very carefully for tracks, and fingers crossed that they have decided to bless us with their presence. But I do have a sneaky sinking sensation that they are still to the north. Don't fly, don't fly, don't fly. It's not something, we see them quite often, but they generally fly away at speed. There we go. A red-faced mouse bird. Oh, there it goes. Darn it, it was a quick view. It is one that I think some of you might be able to add to your bird list, because we haven't managed to catch them on camera too often. They seem to be quite skittish and flying around. And nice to get a view of a bird we don't see often, specifically on a morning like this, which is not a great birding morning. I did know that. Thanks to Jason and Tim. I did know that, I just couldn't remember. The national tree of South Africa is a yellowwood, and they're very beautiful trees. They generally live in the Misbelt region, so somewhere between the high veld and the low veld, and in forests. They're very, very slow-growing trees, and they're actually quite endangered. So the first colonial settlers used yellowwood for everything. The wood is fantastic. It is now illegal to cut them down, of course. My parents have a massive yellowwood table. Now, that was made probably about 200 or so, or 180 years ago. The wood was cut, and it was used as the beams in a big old farmhouse. And as that farmhouse got dilapidated, my dad managed to find that wood, and he got a carpenter to turn it into this beautiful dining room table. But it is a stunning wood, and any yellow wood furniture products are very, very valuable, because of course you can't make any more, and it is illegal to chop any of them. And there we go. Thanks for that, Jason and Tim. You learn something new every day, and thanks for helping me out there, guys. And while we continue the hyena track, check for lion tracks, let's go see what Jamie's been up to.
The only place where I've actually seen a yellowwood tree in this particular area, and I think the only area that it actually occurs in within the Lowveld, is on a mountain known as Maripskop. Now, Maripskop is part of the Drakensberg mountain range. It's the tallest mountain in this particular area, and it has the most incredible vegetation you will ever see. You drive up towards it, because you can drive, you can also climb it if you really want to, but you can drive up along bush, just like the bush we're looking at now, typical low-veld woodland, bushveld woodland or savanna. And you drive up a little bit, and all of a sudden you hit this line where the mist, it's basically the mist line and the cloud line, and it turns into forest. The most incredible, it's almost like a rainforest, it's so moist. It's the most fascinating experience because the transition is completely sudden. And then if you continue on upwards, and you go up just that little bit further, you get to vegetation that is basically described as fynbos. Now, fynbos, of course, you spoke about the national flower, the protea. Fynbos is a distinct floral kingdom, and South Africa is the only place in the world where the entire floral kingdom is contained within one small area, and that's around the Cape area. But if you go up to the top of Mariepskop, you'll actually find all of these rhinoceros type bushes and parts of the daisy family that is definitive of fynbos. It's absolutely incredible to witness. Hello, buffaloes. Come across to Treehouse Dam just while I wait for our chance to go back into that sighting once the other vehicles have pulled out. Just in the vague thought that perhaps Karula might have decided to follow along the tracks of the mating pair. Her den site is sort of about 2 kilometers south, directly south of Treehouse Dam. So she could well have come through this area. At the moment, though, the only occupants of Treehouse Dam appear to be these Duggar boys, the male buffalo that we've pretty much seen every single time we've come to Treehouse Dam in the last few days. A lot of them lying down, and you'll find that, again, that is the typical behavior exhibited by animals in this windy weather. They prefer to lie down, let the wind glance over them. But yes, Mariepskop, if you ever find yourself in South Africa and in the Hoedspruit area or the Kruger area, I would highly, highly recommend paying a visit to Mariepskop. It is breathtakingly beautiful, and apparently on a clear day, you can see all the way across to the sea, which is that's very far away from where we are at the moment. Now, Bryan and I were just discussing I know you were discussing national birds and stuff. We were trying to think of our if we have a national arthropod or an insect. I've suggested that the South African national arthropod should maybe be a millipede, but I have absolutely no idea if we have one or not. Do we? I have no idea. But I feel as though a shongololo or a millipede, maybe I'm biased because they're my favorite arthropod. Standing by. Copy that, thank you. There's nobody else who wants to make their way to that Ingwe sighting?
So far today, someone.
Copy that, perfect, thanks. I'm at Treehouse Dam. I'll be there in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay.
Jamie, how far are they from Triple M at the moment?
Brent, they're far still. Not showing any signs of getting mobile yet.
Copy, thanks.
Okay, let's do a quick loop and make our way back towards our lovely leopards. Hopefully we can have a chance to see them mating properly, not through all the bushes and vegetation, and see them mate as opposed to just listen to them. I know we have a national fish. I know we do. And I cannot think what it is. I feel like it's a yellow something, although that maybe I'm just confusing it with the yellowwood. But I'm sure you'll all agree, millipede is definitely a good choice for a national, not insect, it's not an insect by the truest definition, it's an arthropod. I also feel as though the national fish should be a coelacanth. It's not. The coelacanth, of course, being a fish that was thought to be long since extinct until they found one off the coast of Cape Town. But I believe that it's not, and the national fish is called a... What is that again? A falcon, or a black bean fish, apparently, is what Kirsty tells me in Final Control. It's a tricky name. still feel like it should be a coelacanth. Now, the funny story about the national bird in Botswana, apparently, is something that I was always told. So the national bird of Botswana is a western cattle egret, officially. However, most of the depictions of their national bird do not look like the somewhat, in their opinion, boring western cattle egret, and they've in fact decided that perhaps the lilac-breasted roller would be a better choice. And I could sort of see where that comes from, the bright-coloured purples and blues. Well, I quite like western cattle egrets in their own way. A bird that we occasionally see here, but not all that frequently. Just want to double check these tracks that are walking along the road. I think it's just hyena. No. Hold on. Leopard tracks. This must have been where they crossed in. The light is terrible, otherwise I would show you what I'm looking at. Just want to double check again because it could be Karula. It could be Karula coming in hot on their heels in response to the presence of her daughter in her territory. Oh, they've disappeared off the road. Trying to see if there were male tracks there as well, or if it was just females. The feet looked a little bit big for Karula. Karula's tracks are quite tiny. But that was specifically why I came across to this area. Brent for Jamie. Bryan, on your side, can you see if it's just female, or can you see if there's a bigger track with it? Just the one.
There's one available spot.
Interesting. Very interesting. Copy that. Thanks, Mike. I'm making my way back towards that sighting unless anyone wants to go ahead of me. There we go. I think we've got two sets of tracks there. Let me pull over so that you can see more clearly what I'm looking at.
Yeah, Jamie, it seems like you're good to come through then. There's also another route on the other side of the Ingwes, on the opposite end of where you were, where you can actually see them from the front. There's a little bit of a gap, so I don't know if that's maybe better as well.
Copy that. Thanks, Mike. I'll see you when I get there. Just bear with me 1 second. We are going back towards these leopards, but I just...
on the western side.
Brent, I was just wondering if we knew exactly where these Ingwe crossed. I've just found some tracks form a fuzzy on the road coming up towards Treehouse from the Gowrie Main Shabam Junction.
Copy. Also, the tracks of two of us.
I think Karula's followed behind.
With amazing birds. Tracks of Nkuhumas have gone to just located in the west.
Okay.
I might go have a
Copy that. Sorry, guys. Just chatting to Brent. We're just getting an update. He's been tracking the Nkuhumas, but unfortunately, they've just been found on Simbambili, so outside of our Traverse area. And I just want to check this very carefully because I want to see, no, this is Tingana. These are too big for ladies. No. Definitely male there as well. Okay. So this is where Thandi and Tingana crossed in. That doesn't mean that Karula's tracks are not here, though. She could well be following behind, just to make sure, or just to monitor exactly where Thandi is in relation to her territory. make my way back towards that leopard sighting. While I do, let's find out how Brent's tracking experiences have been going.
So unfortunately, we've just found the tracks of the Nkuhumas, and I just spoke to the guys in Simbambili, and they have found them. So they were chasing a herd of buffalo across the road behind us. It doesn't look like they were successful. So the ladies are still hungry, and that means hopefully they'll come back towards us on the sunset safari. But they have seemed to be avoiding us at the moment, just diving through the corner. Just 1 second. Go ahead. Copy, thanks. So it looks like the Karula was trailing the mating pair last night, as she often does when a random female comes into her territory. Although this female is not random, it is her daughter from her first litter, Shadow's sister. Vibrations. Let's try avoid them. Anna Marie is wondering why does Karula follow the mating pair? She doesn't understand. Well, what happens is that female leopards will move well out of their home range or territory to mate, and there's sort of almost, it's like an unwritten rule between female leopards. They won't really attack that female while she's mating, but they will keep an eye on her to make sure that she leaves the territory. So that's quite often, and we've seen Karula follow Kwatile and Flora when they were mating. We've seen her follow Thandi and Tingana when they were mating, so it is quite normal. Now, update on Kwatile, she has not been seen again, so in all likelihood she has moved on to the next plane from that snake bite. Yesterday I was very fortunate. I was visiting friends of mine, and I got to see Takani, which is Kwatile's daughter, who's about 3 years old at the moment, and she seems to have inhabited that most of what was Kwatile's territory. Very beautiful little leopard. It looks very similar to her mother, and her mother was a particularly pretty leopard. So that is how it works out here. So it did not take long for that void that was left by Kwatile to be filled. Actually, let's show you. I have a treat. I will post some pictures of this, but I do have a few pictures of that beautiful little leopard, and she is in. Let's find a good one for you guys. There we go, the one on top of the termite mound. I think that's a nice one. There we go. You can see how young she is. No marks on her ears yet. Very little scarring or scratches on her face. So there we go. That is Takani, who has taken over her mother's territory. Now, I was chatting to the guys who see her quite regularly, and she has been spotted with the Anderson male, but she hasn't been seen mating yet. She might be a little bit on the young side for mating. If she is going to mate, it's going to be probably in the next couple of months. So very, very exciting. Even though we don't get to see her often, just to know that Kwatile's lineage carries on. Now, I know that whole family of leopards from when I worked to the south, and we used to see quite a few of them. So she is of a river leopard lineage, so her genetics come all the way from the Sand River. Very, very interesting. And with all the Panthera studies at the moment, to be able, once that stuff is released, to be able to interconnect and figure out how the different lineages moved, where they've moved to. So she is still what we would classify as a river leopard. So just on the Manyaleti River. So she's taken over that Kwatile zone, and it is a very beautiful zone on the big Sand River. Now imagine the Mawati and times it by 10, so this big Sand River. We're going to try and get off the corrugations and go see what else we can find inside Juma. So chatting about leopards and leopard cubs, and of course the very exciting fact that Shadow and Karuna both have cubs at the moment. Amanda is wondering, how long will a leopard cub stay with its mother? Now, Amanda, it depends whether it's a male or female. The males will stay quite a lot longer than the females. Females generally will become independent just over a year, and what the mother does to give that cub the best opportunity at getting a nice successful start in life, she will generally almost give away a portion of her territory to her cub. Oh, sorry. Just listen to the radio quickly. Just finding out about Birmingham male lions, where they are, what they're up to, but nowhere where we can go, and it doesn't look like they're heading towards us anytime soon. So, carrying on with the leopard cub discussion, as I was saying, the female leopard will almost give away a portion of the core of her home range to a mother leopard will give to a female cub. Now, this enables this female cub to have a very easy start in life. She doesn't immediately have to go out and start fighting for a territory with an older and established leopard. So the female will actually go do that. And if you watch female home rangers, the older they get, the smaller they become, as she gives off various parts to her offspring. Now, male leopards will spend a lot more time with mum. They will stay with mum normally to just around 2 years, even as long as 3 years, but normally around 2 to 2.5 years they'll stay with mum. Now, the reason a female leopard seems to put more effort into raising a boy is that is the best chance for her genetic code to be passed on to a lot of different females. So, of course, those males at about 2.5, 3 years old will become nomadic, and they will wander often very far from their natal home range. And by the time they're sort of 5, 6 and start challenging for a territory, they are very far from the mom's spot. So, and over a male leopard's life, he's going to mate with multiple females. So the reason that the female spends a little bit longer with those males is that it's the best chance for her genetics to be passed on to multiple different females. Also, that male has to immediately, as he becomes dispersal, he's got a much tougher life than that female who's got this lovely insular little territory often within her mother's. So it is very interesting that, and it's amazing how evolution has created these different tactics for the same animal and even the same litter.
We have arrived back at our mating leopard pair. They are currently occupied in their favorite occupation, or with their favorite occupation, of sleeping. At least we've got a really nice view of Tingana now. And now sitting all by ourselves with these two leopards. Thandi, although you can't really see her, is right hidden at the back. There you go. You can just see the spots of the back of her neck. That's Thandi at the back there. Apparently they did mate while we were checking out Treehouse Dam, but hopefully we'll get one last chance to see it before the end of the sunrise safari. And fingers crossed they'll still be here this afternoon as well for the sunset safari. It's just going to be a matter or a question of finding them. He's found such a comfortable looking leopard spot. I can't even at this point tell what tree that used to be, but this fallen one, you can see all of the charred marks around its base. So that's probably what killed it. Either lightning or fire moving through this area. And I know that this area did burn a couple of years ago. And it's provided him with a perfect, slight shady cover, because even though it is cloudy, the temperature is still heating up this morning. He's got a soft patch of grass, nice shade, and it's quite a lot of work for the female to come and harass him. I think he's found the perfect position, beautifully framed by that dead tree. And there's not much more in the world, or there's no other animal that can look as comfortable as a leopard can, except perhaps a lion. But a leopard can make any position, even if it's on top of a very uncomfortable looking termite mound. They make it look somehow like the most comfortable place on earth. I'm just listening really carefully. I can hear elephants trumpeting off in the distance. And there's a chance, a small chance, but a chance nonetheless, that they will come and pay us a visit. And that's always interesting, watching elephants interact with predators, even leopards. If they spot them, they will try. There's a very good chance that they will try and chase them away. I've seen it happen once or twice before. And in that respect, elephants are fascinating because there's some kind of residual instinct there that tells them that they must chase a predator, even a leopard that is of absolutely no threat to them whatsoever. And wild dogs even less so, yet wild dogs seem to offend them the most. Oh. Lots of trumpeting. Very upset elephants. I'm just going to listen for a second. They're far away. But it always makes me wonder, having chatted a bit about their reaction to other predators, if they haven't possibly encountered something that's upset them. The fact that they're still trumpeting. Usually when elephants are upset with each other, the squeals or the trumpets last for a little while, but they stop relatively quickly. It might also be the wind. I spoke about the fact that it is a windy day. It might also be the wind that's unsettling them. I'll keep listening. You never know. Wild dogs are so unpredictable. They might have just decided to run onto the property without any of us being aware of it. Tingana, however, not in any way interested in the sound effects of the morning. Now, Beer, you have suggested that the tail looks as though it has a life of its own. I find leopard tails absolutely fascinating. The degree or the lack of control that a lot of the cats, but particularly leopards, seem to demonstrate over that tricky thing that is the tail is so interesting and intricate to watch. Of course, that tail plays such an important role in communicating their mood to other leopards and to other animals, as well as a rudder for when they are running, a sort of a counterbalance. But look at it twitch. I mean, yes, we see their ears twitch a lot, but that's almost always in response to flies or to noises. This tail doesn't have any flies around it. It just twitches. And I've noticed, I don't know what it is, but particularly Karula to me, and I did ask the other day whether any of the viewers agree with me that Karula seems to have a more active tail than, for example, Tingana does. I've just noticed that even when she's asleep, there's that constant flick and twitch. And the interesting thing is that tail, or that lack of control over the tail, can sometimes give them away when they're moving through an area. Because it's got the very clear white tip to the end, that color shows up very clearly to the animals in the bush. And I've seen a leopard stalk for hours before. And then at the last moment, it's as though the tail gives an involuntary twitch. And then the animals immediately notice that and go racing off away from the leopard. I don't know, it's interesting that they've evolved in that manner. Obviously, the uses of the tail outweigh its disadvantages of not having that degree of control. And a warm welcome to Sarah, who is watching and asking her questions on Twitter and would like to know what the difference is. There goes that tail again. What the difference is between a leopard and a cheetah. Brilliant question, one that is two animals that are very easily confused to people who are unfamiliar with them. So a leopard is built for stealth and strength. They've got very, very stocky bodies. Just have a look, Sarah. I know it's not the easiest thing to see, but try and have a look at the spots, particularly around his bottom and his back. They're not solid spots. They are what's known as rosettes. So these spots sort of form a little ring around, ring-like pattern. And it's only around their legs and their face that they actually have solid spots, whereas cheetah have completely solid spots. Leopards have retractable claws, because they utilize them for hunting and for climbing. They need to stay sharp and protected and out of the way. Whereas with cheetah, they need their claws for traction when they run. So their claws are semi-non-retractable and very often quite distinctly clear in their tracks. I'm going to show you a picture just to make what I've said easier. And the biggest defining feature of a cheetah, or one that I think most people are the most familiar with, is the tear marks that run down from the corner of their eyes. So this is the cheetah. Long limbs, claws at the tip, and then those dark marks that run down the side of the face. And the big reason why they have those is because, unlike leopards, cheetah are active during the day. They are not nocturnal cats. That is because they're smaller than all of the other cats in this big cats in this area. So they rather would hunt during the day when there's less competition. So those dark stripes actually absorb the glare of the sun and make it a bit easier for them to hunt. There's the solid spots. Now if we flip over, just to give you a comparison of size and that you can actually see the clearer difference in body structure. You see how long-legged and sort of thin and athletic looking a cheetah is? It is so that it is capable of those bursts of speed, whereas a leopard, much stockier, slightly shorter but heavier and more powerful. A cheetah would never be able to drag a kill up a tree in the same way that a leopard can. So a leopard is much, much heavier. And then, of course, just for comparison, you can see how much larger a lion is in terms of size and shape. And just last thing, because we can't see it as clearly on Tingana as I would like to be able to answer you properly. This is what I mean by the rosettes. You see how they're not solid spots? They're sort of a series of spots around a slightly discolored patch of fur. And no claws visible. So those are the big differences between leopards and cheetahs. Physiologically, in terms of evolution, the cheetahs are a completely separate branch of the cat family. They do not fall under the Panthera heading. The Panthera cats are basically defined by their ability to roar, which cheetah absolutely do not do. And in fact, they make very uncat-like or sounds that we would never associate with big cats in Africa. They chirp like birds and they purr. But their best, my favorite call of a cheetah sort of goes, sounds nothing like what a big cat should sound like. They're very, very different. They tend to be much more retiring. They also occur in much smaller numbers in this particular area. It's hard if you're a cheetah to really get up to full speed in such thick vegetation. Our Ellies have finally gone silent, but I know that Brent is sort of around the area where they have been calling. Let's find out if he could hear them and what he thinks might be happening.
So no sign of the Queen of Djuma yet, but we're still on the prowl. And while we've been prowling, we have been keeping our eye open for edible plants. And we do have another one to show you. It's quite a nice one, very pretty one. There we go. You can see that purple. That purple isn't actually the flower, it's a leaf. Now, my thinking on this is that that leaf is probably, that color is to attract certain insects. And you can see the flowers, actually, that's a bit of flower there. They're white. Now, this is very similar to something you would find in your kitchen at home. This is onychum, the wild basil. So lovely. It smells slightly different to your normal basil that you would have in your kitchen, but it's definitely a basil. The smell you can and the taste as well. It is definitely basil. Very, very tasty. I personally like to use it with lamb when I'm cooking, but normally in the summer seasons there's lots of them, and I've only seen 3 so far, but they've become very big bushes. And if I spot a bush while we're driving, I shall show it to you. Yum, 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 yum. So Jamie's just said she heard some elephants trumpeting and was wondering if I heard them. I think I'm a bit far at the moment from where Jamie is with the lovers, Tingana and Thandi. It would be nice to catch up with some ellies before the end of the drive there. Haven't seen any yet today. Lots of tracks all over the place. Oh, these basils got stuck on my palate. But while I try and deal with this basil issue, and it's not basil faulty, although his reincarnation in the name of James Hendry is wandering around on the reserve somewhere. But someone was wondering, oh sorry, if we have any honeysuckle plants here. And yes, we do. Maybe not. I'm trying to think if I've seen any in Djuma. I haven't, but they do occur in South Africa. Sorry. In South Africa, and there's 2 types. There's one that's a bush and one that's a creeper. So we do, and very beautiful flowers, quite similarly coloured to this. Obviously the flower shapes look different, but we have a couple of species of honeysuckles, but they generally in areas that have get slightly more rain, so closer to the mountains. So it's been a blast looking for flowers and attempting to look for big cats with you, but fortunately Jamie got those mating leopards, which is, I'm sure, provided you excitement, and I've just kept waffling on about all the different wildflowers, and I think Wium and I are together again on the Sunset Safari, so I think we're going to continue our search for edible plants and whatever else we might be able to find. But until the Sunset Safari, I'm sure you're quite sick of listening to me, so go enjoy the last few minutes with Jamie and the leopards.
We are still with our leopards, and despite my best Lionel Richie crooning and the mood lighting set by the dark cloudy sky and the green bushes, it has not inspired our leopards to move up from their position and to mate once again. In fact, the most movement we've had from Tingana is just flicking the flies around him. That's generally quite common with leopards mating. So they'll mate quite a lot during the night and in the early hours of the morning. And as the morning starts to heat up, they start to slow down. Never mind, we will just have to wait for our sunset safari this afternoon. Hopefully they decide to stay in this general area and not disappear on us. We'll keep our fingers crossed, and you'll have to join us then to find out what will happen. As always, a big thank you to Bryan for his fantastic camera work, and of course a big thank you to the Thumb as well for joining us, as well as to our lovely ladies Kirsty and Rebecca in final control, and our tech team out and about and making sure everything flows smoothly, which, as you can imagine, is sometimes an absolutely enormous job. And most importantly, thank you to all of you for your questions and your comments that you feed through to us. We really appreciate them, and they make our drives so much more fun and entertaining for all of us. So have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and we're going to leave off with the last view of our leopards.